Good afternoon, everybody. This is our franchisee spotlight, our first franchisee spotlight in a long time. And we're thrilled to be kicking it off with Tawanda Hennix, owner of a place of home Glenside. This is um, our first spotlight since convention, which has been like 2 months ago now. So glad to get back on track. We've had a lot of things happening. Tawanda's had a lot of things happening. Just to give you a quick couple of hits, I talked to your coach Jennifer, who's with us today as well. I said, Jennifer, give me some highlights other than numbers for Tawanda. And you got involved with Meals on Wheels. So you're giving back to your community. You have maintained a 5-star Google rating. You've made a massive impact in your community. And you still have your very first client with the very first caregiver still matched together. Is that still correct? Nothing happened to
Yes.
them? Perfect. Well, they are doing great, and you are in up there in Glenside, Pennsylvania, to give context to this. So, welcome to the spotlight. How are you feeling,
So far, so good.
Jennifer? How are you feeling on your beach out there?
Oh, I wish I was back on the boat.
Actually, I go on a boat. Was that later this week? But we're not here to talk about me. All right. So we're just going to jump right into the questions. So let's start off. Wanda, what inspired you to launch a place home franchise, and what was your reasoning behind getting into the senior care space? Why don't you give a little background of where you work, how you got to where you are, and or why you chose what you chose of a place home, and where you are today.
So I worked in senior facilities. I seen where the residents weren't getting one-on-one care. There's one resident assistant to maybe 8 to 10 residents, and some residents were being left alone or not just there was no attention paid to them. So my last facility where I worked at, I made some very good connections with a lot of the residents there, but just seeing the what the attention that they weren't receiving. Some of them needed a little extra, and they weren't giving it when you have one person giving care for 10 people. Um, so I gave some thoughts. Took this information back to my husband and asked him like, "Hey, what do you think?" My husband is retired, so it'd be me putting him back to work or us working together. Um, I worked with Paul Jennings, and he always told me, Tawanda, you should do what my wife does. And I'm like, well, what does she do? Um, but the conversation never went any further. So one day I'm like, Paul, I was like, I'm sick of working here. So he's like, Tawanda, you should just do what my wife does. So I'm like, well, what does she do? So he's like, she's a owner of her own home care agency. So I was like, well, maybe I should sit down and talk to her. So I set up a meeting, talked to Dina, and she just really let me know that um to take everything that I had to put it into a home care agency was a smart thing to do. And she spent a lot of time telling me how good a place at home was. So I took that back home again to my husband and was like, hey, I think I found what we could do. And I could take what I enjoy doing, working with seniors, and step away from work and work for myself. So that's how I got to a place of home. Uh, and that's how we started a place of home Glenside.
Awesome. And Greg has been in full support. Pleasure of knowing Greg ever since the beginning of your journey. And what I guess we're going to go on to what aspects of your background. So, coming from that background, what skill set in your background helped you in this business that maybe some other owners or some prospects didn't have when looking at a franchise and senior?
Understanding the importance of seniors staying at home as long as they can. I've seen seniors that are placed in facilities. I see them decline. Some of them decline rapidly. Sometimes it takes, it all depends. I see some that fit right in, but if a family member really listens to their senior and understand like, hey, maybe the best thing is for them to stay at home. I mean, try for them to try their best to keep that person at home. They're more comfortable with their environment. Um, and they just need to be where they're going to enjoy and make sure that they have a quality care of life living out, their last days. So just being where I was at, I seen some residents come in and 3 months later they're gone because they're not happy, or they just miss being comfortable at home. Or they either decide at some point, I just want to go back home, and they move out. So they've already spent a massive amount of money to live someplace that they weren't comfortable with. And when they went home, and you speak to their family members, if you see them stop by because they're visiting somebody else, and it's like, hey, how's mom doing? How's dad doing? Oh, they're doing so great. They're doing wonderful. And all it was them to take them home and find um an agency or somebody to care for their parent at home.
All right, so now let's go to the operations and the business and the launch. Thinking back to your launch process, I've always pushed the message that your first year in home care is chaos. Even if you had some prior experience, it's still different. It's a different type of business. And now you're a business owner. Like typically when people come from the industry, like senior living into home care, it's not teaching you the skill sets of the care delivery part that we have to focus on. It's more of being the business owner and starting a business and operations and everything like that. What though, going back to your launch process, what were those first 3 to 4 months like with Danny when you were launching with the place at home? What do you remember the most? What maybe struggles did you have going through that, or what proud moments did you have during that process?
The struggles were, I felt like I was back in college again because it was so much to that I had to do. It was like completing the assignments. Like if I didn't complete the assignment, what was I going to say? Why didn't I finish it?
Mhm.
So I compared that to when I went back to school to get my master's degree, because I felt like every week I had an assignment and I had to research or I had to find something out. So when I met with Danny, it was like, Danny, I didn't get everything, I didn't get everything finished, or I'm missing something. So I felt like I felt disappointed myself because I felt like I was missing my assignment. So I set myself reminders to make sure that I stayed on top of it. A proud moment for me was when I actually received the email to say that I got my license, because the process took longer than what I expected. So when I got it, I read the email and I was like, is this saying what it's saying? So I had to call my husband and be like, hey, I got this email. I'm going to read it to you. Could you tell me what you think it says? So that the day I received my license to say that I can actually be a home care agency within the state of Pennsylvania.
Nice. That is a proud moment and a huge burden of stress relieved off your shoulders. Is Pennsylvania there? What did it take you, like 90 to 120 days out there? Or was it longer?
I think it took me about 6 weeks to get.
Oh, 6 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know when you get that license and you're ready to operate, that's a big sigh of relief, but then it gets real. So after you got that license and you came to training and got introduced to Jennifer, which you're going to integrate Jennifer into the conversation now. What was that like? After you launched, you went to training, you started with Jennifer. What was those first couple of weeks like with Jennifer? How did you guys adjust to each other? Right? Like I always say, coaches have to meet the owners where they're at. Owners are getting coached for the first time on business. What was that experience like? Let's start with Jennifer here, so she gets her time to shine. And then Tawanda, we'll talk about it.
All right. Well, obviously the first thing is to really understand and meet her where she's at and look at her goals and kind of put that plan into place. And just really start to, accustom to what that daily routine is going to be like, and where to start. And we always start in your inner circle. And we started with, where do we start marketing and how do we start building the foundation of the operations? And Tawanda was by herself. She wears every hat under the sun still. And that's tough as a business owner. So we've had, extra calls. That was one thing we did. We had weekly touch points or daily. It was daily touch points. How are you doing? What does today look like? So I think I gave you extra support at the beginning because you're by yourself, and some people come in here with their spouse and there's a little bit of share in the task, but you were on your own and it's your first time owning a business. And as much as your husband wanted to be involved, we realized that he couldn't. So it really fell on you. I think one of the best parts is when I came down to visit and we had our visit together and I exposed you to networking and we made meetings and we did a lot of marketing. That was our introduction to Emeticis in Pennsylvania. And I value and I love that time when we got to have that meeting in that great restaurant with that great food. But I could really
visits are always about the restaurants and food.
Yeah, but no, I'm not a foodie. I'm not. No, it was the relationship building. It was the relationship building, and I could see generally how you were getting received in the community, and that was beautiful. And so I knew that with regular cadence, and we always talk about this, you were going to start to really build those referrals. And then what happened, Tawanda became a caregiver because she took on a very difficult case of a couple that most agencies would have passed up and just said, you know what, I can't do it. But she did. And that really shows the heart of what she has. And she does lead with heart. And she cared for these people. And I got to meet them and watch her do that personal care. Not that that's a great thing for a business owner, because it's not. It happens, but you have to move away from it because it can start to hurt the business. And we know, and we've had a number of conversations of, do we let these guys go? Do we keep them? Do we try and put a caregiver there? And we tried that a couple times, and it's a very difficult, challenging case. But you stayed positive. We've had very good conversations about growth and how to do it. And you're still in that learning game. You're still in that first year.
Is that client still a client?
They're still a client. They're in a rehab right now.
How are they doing?
They're doing good. They're doing better. It was something that needed to be done. He was diagnosed properly with dementia. And he got what he needed, and now he's in rehab for physical therapy.
Okay. So let's talk about that a bit, because that's something that any prospect looking at franchises or a place at home as a business opportunity, or anyone getting into senior care is with shifts and becoming the caregiver, right? I guess I would, if you're to ask me, let's have a little round table here. My opinion is this: I've done it, right? I started this. I was a caregiver right at the beginning because I didn't have the staff and I had to do what I had to do, and that's what owners do. Tawanda, you kind of got stuck in it because was it staffing or was it more so family dynamic or the level of care? What was it the staffing that got you
So it was a little bit. It was a little bit of everything. So how I got in there was I had a caregiver who, on his first day, claimed that he had a headache and asked the client for some Percocets. So that was his first and last day.
All right.
So then I started, hiring caregivers. Their number one issue was they didn't want to be around a dog, and they have a dog.
Okay.
Scary dog, not a cute dog, a scary dog.
What kind of dog? A Doberman?
No, I don't know. Some kind of dog they rescue. So I don't know what it is.
Rottweiler or something like that.
So I have quite a
discriminated against two dogs, by the way. Sorry.
I have quite a few caregivers, but that's their number one thing. They don't like dogs. And then I was like, okay, I hired a few more, and then it's like, oh, I don't want any male clients, so I
Male
understand that.
caregivers?
Yeah,
Oh, or the caregivers didn't want male clients.
right. So one young lady I interviewed, she was like, I was in a situation. I had a male client. I told the agency to have me removed, and they kept sending me there. So, I mean, I, didn't want to put her in a bad situation. So
Sure.
I'm back to square. Well, I'm back to square one, but I have somebody, but now that he's in rehab, so we'll see.
All right.
The family
So, but
dynamic is off too.
yeah,
Very off.
what,
It's
that's a
very off.
thing. That's a thing. Managing that. We can talk a little bit about that towards the end, the family dynamics of care. Uh, but you've been successful on being able to pull it, regardless of him going to rehab. From my understanding, you were successful at finally finding that match caregiver that got you relieved out of that situation. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And so I'm going to give you kudos on that because a lot of people, a lot of agencies, big agencies too, would probably find 5 to 10 reasons on why they should discharge that client. I'm gonna be honest with you. I would have probably discharged and said I'm not a fit. We probably need to look at a facility. And that's the difference. And that's kind of the selling factor for new agencies versus the seasoned ones, right? And so like the seasoned ones are going to take on those cases because, or no, I'm sorry, the newer ones might take a little bit more risk on there, be a little bit more involved. But that also is probably why you have a 5-star rating on Google, is because of that effort level that you put into finding that person. So I want to give you kudos. If you were still going there routinely, I would have stepped in and probably said, Tawanda, it's eating up a lot of your time, which it probably did. And it's also, for those people who get stuck in this situation, it also stunts your growth because you don't have time to go out. Is that a fair set? Would you agree with that? Like you
Yes.
during that time frame?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the cost outweighs, but you hung in there, you kept pushing, and that family was very, very lucky to have you. So kudos to Tawanda.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give you
And she cares for both now. So she increased her hours by getting the spouse as well. So it's caring for both of them, making a difference, impact. That's what we talk about.
Awesome. Now going on to the next question here, my right screen. One screen. There we go. All right. So you guys have been coaching. Tell me about your guys'. You kind of went through it, Jennifer, but Tawanda, I'm going to go to you now about Jennifer. What has been biggest takeaways from the coaching experience? Something you probably didn't think you were going to get from a coach. And what's that experience been like?
It was something different. I mean, I've had mentors before through work, through school. I mean, I find it important to have a coach or mentor. I mean, because it allows them to hold you accountable for certain things that needs to be done, or, just to keep you on the straight and narrow. It's growing pains. We both had to learn each other. I mean, I had to learn what her expectations were from me, and vice versa, what my expectations from my coach were. So, I mean, now that we are 11 months in, I think
Wow.
we have an understanding of each other and what the expectations are, and being able to hold each other accountable for, what we expect of one another.
Would you guys both say, we can say it at the same time? Ready? Would you both say that you're aligned with the vision and goals for next year?
Yes.
Yes.
That's important when you have a coach. A coach's job is not to make and dictate and drive your results. You're responsible to drive your results, right? But the coach has to be on the same page and give you that little push. So, and that's one of the proudest things I am, is that I think we have good coaches who are, like I said, meet you where you're at. Everyone needs a little bit different approach, but I've even ran into people where it took me months to get aligned. I'm pretty easy, right, Jennifer? I'm pretty easy to align with. Wouldn't you say?
Sure. Yeah. No, he is.
No, I mean, but we all want you to be successful. But you guys are aligned, and now you're making some effort. You're going to be going into this next year. And I would say, asking this of both of you, let's ask Jennifer, and then let's test it. What's your current focus and biggest goal for your business right now?
Okay, so for Tawanda's business, I know her heart is on VA and getting VA up and running, and there has been challenges there. But I think that just getting another payer source is the next goal. So if that's Medicaid, let's help you get Medicaid. Let's really work on long-term care insurance and getting your name out there, being like online presence. And Tawanda is investing in that. She's going to be doing a series of videos. She hired someone to help her a little bit with that. So I'm excited to see her blossom out in the community, because once you're online and in the community, you're going to really be recognized.
Awesome. Tawanda, would you agree with that? Do you have any other big goals, current goals for this business right now?
I mean, that aligns with what I want to do, but we touched bases on this, and we didn't really divulge into it a little any further. But in my inner circle, and some people who I've talked to, or people who I know are dealing with parents or family members with dementia, I wanted to, somewhere in the near future, I don't know how far or how near, but I wanted to start some form of support group. Just talking to people. A very good friend of mine, her mom has dementia, and it's a hard struggle for her and her sister to deal with. And just, encountering people dealing with that, I feel like it's something that there's a need, because everybody doesn't know how to deal with, seeing their parent or family member deal with dementia or Alzheimer's. So that's just one, outside of what Jennifer talked about. That's just something we talked about, but we didn't divulge any further.
Yeah. We also talked about you building your revenue enough to hire a marketer, because that is something she wants to do. She wants to step outside of the marketing role and really focus on the operations of the business and the growth.
So the focus this year then is building the team.
Mm-hmm.
Usually that goes into year 2. You're 11 months in. So usually when the team starts to get built, care coordinators, marketers. So that's exciting. It's very exciting. Now, one thing I would say on the support group, do you have an Alzheimer's association in your area?
Not really. I gotta look, because I don't think it's one in my area. So I would have to kind of travel further away.
Well, you might want to reach out and see if you can get on like a board spot. Hey, it's 2 things. 1, you can give back and help with the association, or 2, you might be able to start a support group in your area of the Alzheimer's Association. They have obviously a big footprint. So that might be something to look into just in your area. So you don't have to start from scratch. Like, they'll have materials, they'll have the resources that you can utilize to help them out, as opposed to like starting from scratch. I think that would help you. So maybe mark that down as a follow-up to do to look at.
Sounds good.
All right. So going on here, we talked about the relationship between you guys' partnership. We're talking about this year. I want to talk about the future. Where do you want to be 2 to 3 years from now? And then I'm going to ask Jennifer, what do you think, based on Tawanda's answer, where she wants to be 2 to 3 years from now? What does Jennifer think needs to happen in the operations of the business? And then what does Tawanda think needs to happen in time frame to hit that goal? Does that make sense? So I'll drive it. Let's start step 1. 2 to 3 years, 2 years from now, where do you see a place in Home Glenside?
Okay, you go.
2 to 3 years.
It gotta be her goal, then.
Think of your EOS. Think of what we plan for 10 years and then go backwards.
Well, we changed that a couple times, but the last time we talked and went over this, I said in 2 years, I would like to be between 7 to 1,000 billable hours, have a team to support me as far as a marketer, HR, someone helping me with operations, because that can be a bit much if I'm trying to grow the business also. And have I'm gonna say take a shot in the dark between maybe 40 plus caregivers. Um,
The
and
40
just
plus
make,
caregivers.
yeah, 40 plus. Cause trying to keep good caregivers or hire caregivers is it's the market, it fluctuates. So I'm
Mhm.
just saying 40 plus, and just make myself more prominent within my community, to let people know who and what a place at home Glenside and what a place at home stands for when it comes to our mission statement and what care stands for.
Okay.
All right.
So
So I'm going to take your caregivers here. 40. We have like a 1.2 ratio. So it's like 1.2 clients equals one caregiver.
Uh-huh.
Or I'm sorry, 1.2 caregivers equals one. Right now. And then our average client value, our average client weekly is 25. But I'm going to do 20. I'm going to undercut it a little bit, which would give you 727 billable hours a week.
Okay.
What's your average weekly? Or what's your average bill rate?
34, like
34.
$34.17 right now.
All right. So doing that in the next 2 years, you'll be at about 1.3 million in revenue.
Okay.
I think it's doable. Now with the Medicaid, I know we were following up. You and I and Jennifer were following up with some partners on the Medicaid side. We got to follow up with them again. They're supposed to get us an answer today on that. But the rate out there is not that bad. What is that rate? Do you know? It's like
Is it
27, 26.
right? I think it's 25 and some 25, 63, somewhere around there.
Yeah. Well, let me ask. We're going to use our AI tools and AI training with my old friend Al, I like to call, capital A, lowercase, capital I, lowercase L is a capital I, Al. I had 10 minutes. Hold on. Sleep again. Looking. Oh, shoot. I wrote it in the chat. The chat to you guys. This is one of those edible moments, Ashley and Marianne. Edible moment. 21.52 per hour as of mid 2024. So there must be an increase that happened.
it has to be more than that.
So, all right. Well, we're going to skip past that and bring it on down to our kind of our wrap up here. How do you personally interpret We Are Care? How are you bringing it to life in your business right now?
Hmm.
You care for Greg?
Um, I care for everybody. Anybody that knows me knows that I'm a very compassionate and understanding person. I will do any and everything that I can for anybody, especially seniors. I had a conversation with a senior a couple weeks ago. They were dealing with something and they kind of felt like now that they're a senior, they kind of got thrown away. Like nobody really cares about them. It's like we're moving on to the next generation. Um, and for me, I feel like the seniors, if it wasn't for them, they paved the way. I've come across, there are a lot. I met a lady at a adult center that I did a presentation at. She was 105. So, they're starting to live longer, but they feel that they're less appreciated. So I'm very understanding, and I try to do any and everything to go above and beyond to make sure that that's not how they always feel. So whatever I can do to make them feel good about themselves, I'll do that. Um, everything about care is making sure that you go above and beyond for whether for me, whether it's a client or not. Like I
Mhm.
said, I do presentations at some of the adults daycare centers, and if I can help out, with doing something there or helping a senior, get in a car, helping with their bags. It doesn't have. I'm always not somewhere without a place at home, something on that says a place at home. So I feel like I'm always representing who I am, my business, and who we are on a whole. So I'm always doing something to help seniors, whether, like I said, help them with their groceries to their car, helping them out the door, assisting them, whatever. So they don't always have to be a client. I'm going to always do what I should do when it comes to just people in general. But seniors hold a special place in my heart, though.
Awesome. This goes back to the age-old saying: if you help enough people get what they want, you will get what you want.
Mhm.
So, um, last couple of things. I'll ask both of you this question. Well, let's real quick. Well, actually, I'll ask Jen first. Well, but Tawanda, if you could go back and during your journey of discovering a place at home and getting into this business, what's one piece of advice that you would give what it takes to be successful in home care that you know today that you may not have known when you first started?
Uh, that's kind of hard because for me, I have a large cheering section. So when I want to do something or I want to try something, I have people who, encourage me, who cheer me on. So if you have I have a small group of people, whether it's friends, family, that encourage you and support you and cheer you on. I think that's the most important thing, because if you don't have that, I think it would be harder for you to try to.
So, a support group,
Yes,
I think that's
yes.
important. I would say, what I always say is there's two things that kill all deals, and that's lawyers and spouses. So, or actually three: time, lawyers, and spouses. Kill all kind of franchise deals, and that's in the franchising month. But especially in senior care, right? Your spouse has got to back you up. I can't tell you time and time again how many times I've talked to people looking into home care in general. One of my first questions: what does your husband think about, or what does your wife think about this? What does your husband think about this? Well, I haven't really had that conversation yet. Your husband knows that it's like you're gonna answer the phone at 9. You might be at dinner and have to step out. I was in a movie. I'll never forget. I was in a movie, and I can't remember what movie, but it was a good movie, and I had to step out and handle something. I missed the movie. My wife was alone in there. I think some random guy sat next to her and said, "Are you okay?" But I came back. But that's the kind of thing, is that this isn't just a life change for you yourself. It's a life change for the entire family, for the
Hmm.
better, right? And that's the second thing, is you got to want to do senior care, right? You got to want to be able to do well. Jennifer, you got anything to add?
Yeah. So, as far as like it goes with Tawanda and just any new owner, it starts with building relationships. This entire business is relationship building, and you have to start in the community first and build your network, and then you're going to start to get the referrals. You can't expect the phone to just ring. You can't expect to not keep going. You have to keep going. You have to absolutely keep going. And one of the things I wanted to point out, and I guess we didn't reciprocate when you had talked about your 2 to 3 year. It's okay. So Tawanda, when we first set out our plan as everyone at training, I'm going to make $1 million in my first year. And let's be realistic. Not everybody can reach that. And I think that Tawanda and I have come to we've come to an understanding to be, you know, where you're at and you're by yourself and you're doing this and you're a working mom and all the dynamics. And, you know, I love that 2 to 3 years, I'm going to be $1 million. For you, I do see that it's going to take a little more time, and that's okay. But we know that time and effort equals results. So as long as you start to really strategize and put your time to building the networks, the referrals will come.
Age old saying, stick to the script, right? So keep on plugging away, keep making those. We did some coaching last week, Tawanda. Remember, like you've met a lot of people out there. Now you just got to focus on asking for them to send you leads. That's the next phase, and it'll continue to grow. And then the biggest one is becoming a leader. Now you're going to have to bring on those team members, and that's going to be a whole new set of challenges for you, primarily because it's going to be really hard when you've been doing everything this last year to piece away and work on the business as opposed to in the day-to-day. So if your first hire is a marketer, give them a plan, set up expectations, join our CRM that we just did a deal with, right? And have you got on them yet? Both of them?
Yes.
Yeah. That is going to be the easiest tool to know their results, but also show them and set expectations and their goals and drive home the results with your marketer. Don't just hire a marketer and assume they know what they're going to do. So that's the thing. And then you got to give them time as well. Marketers have to build their own foundation as well. So I'm excited for you this year. Big year 2. It's time to organize yourself, build up your teams. Jennifer's excited. You're excited. You're excited this year. And Greg's excited. I know he is. And that's all I got. You guys got anything else to add? Closing statements, Jennifer, Tawanda?
No.
No, just keep going. Keep the resilience, because you do have a lot of it. And just, you know what? This entire time, even with the ups and downs, you never gave up. You keep going and you keep pushing harder. So that's the way to build a business.
All right. Well, that's a wrap, folks. Tawanda, proud of you. Jennifer, thanks for joining. And that's our franchise spotlight out at a place at home, Glenside, PA. See you guys.
All right, thank you.
Okay, bye.